His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada
Jai.
ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jutta. Did you bring my bottle over here? I forgot it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 All right, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 19.
You want to pull it up or?
Someone else pull it up, because I got like different things I have to go through. Okay. Start. Swa vid brahostra
Rahoska.
karai.
Karai.
Okay, someone's got it. Samstutaha purushaha
Purushaha.
pashuhu
Pashuhu.
na
Na.
yat
Yat.
karna
Karna.
patopeto
Topeto.
jhatu
Jatu.
nama
Nama.
gadagajaha.
Gita. Virjaha.
Okay. Swadvidraha shostra karai
Swavidvirahoshtra Karai.
shamstuta purusha pashuhu
Samskuta Purusha.
nayat karna patopeto
Nayat Karna Topeto.
jatu nama gadagajaha.
Jatu Nama Gita Virjaha.
Swadvidrahostra karai
Swavidvirahoshtra Karai.
shamstuta purusha pasuhu
Samskuta Purusha Pashu.
nayat karna patopeto
Nayat Karna Topeto.
jatu nama gadagajaha.
Jatu Nama Gita Virjaha.
Swadvidrahostra karai
Swavidvirahoshtra Karai.
shamstuta purusha pashuhu nayat karna patopeto
Nayat Karna Topeto.
jatu nama gadagajaha.
Jatu Nama Gita Virjaha.
Okay.
Swavid Varahoshtra Kharaye. Samsusta Purusha Pashu. Nayat Karna Pathopeto. Jatu Nama Gida Gurjaha. Swavid Varahoshtra Karaha.
Swadvidrahostra karai
Samstuta Purusha Pashahu.
samstuta purusha pasuhu
Nayat Karna Patopeto.
karna patopeto
Jatu Nama Gada Gurjaha. Jatu Nama Gada Gurjaha.
Mataji's? Swadvidrahostra karai
Samsuta Purusha Pashu. Nayat Karna Patopeto. Jatu Nama Gada Gurjaha.
Okay. Swa, a dog.
A dog.
Vitraha, Vitraha, the village hog who eats stool.
The village hog eats stool.
Ushtra,
Ushtra,
the camel.
camel.
Karai,
Karai,
and by the asses.
by the asses.
Samstutaha, perfectly praised.
Perfectly praised.
Purushaha,
Purushaha,
a person.
a person.
Pashuhu,
Pashuhu,
animal.
animal.
Na,
Na,
never.
never.
Yet,
Yet,
of him.
of him.
Karna,
Karna,
ear.
ear.
Pata,
Pata,
path.
path.
Upetaha,
Peta,
reached.
reach.
Jatu,
Jatu,
at any time.
anytime.
Nama,
Nama,
the holy name.
holy name.
Gadagrajaha,
Vidagrajaha,
Lord Krishna, the deliverer from all evils.
Lord Krishna, the deliverer from all evils.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Okay. Okay. Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. The general mass of people, unless they are trained systematically for a higher standard of life and spiritual values, are no better than animals. And in this verse, they have particularly been put on the level of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Modern university education particularly prepares one to acquire a doggish mentality with which to accept a position of service to a greater master. After finishing a so-called education, the so-called educated persons move like dogs from door to door with applications for some service, and mostly they are driven away, informed of no vacancy. As dogs are knowledgeable animals, and serve the master faithfully for bits of bread, a man serves the master faithfully without sufficient rewards. Persons who have no discrimination in the matter of foodstuff and who eat all sorts of rubbish are compared to hogs. Hogs are very much attached to eating stools. So stool is a kind of foodstuff for a particular type of animal. And even stones are edibles for a particular type of animal or bird. But the human being is not meant for eating everything and anything. He is meant to eat grains, vegetables, fruits, milk, sugar, etc. Animal food is not meant for the human being. For chewing solid food, the human being has a particular type of teeth meant for cutting fruits and vegetables. The human being is endowed with 2 canine teeth as a concession for persons who will eat animal food at any cost. It is known to everyone that one man's food is another man's poison. Human beings are expected to accept the remnants of food offered to Lord Sri Krishna, and the Lord accepts foodstuff from the category of leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. Bhagavad Gita 9:26. As prescribed by Vedic scriptures, no animal food is offered to the Lord. Therefore, a human being is meant to eat a particular type of food. He should not imitate the animals to derive so-called vitamin values. Therefore, a person who has no discrimination in regard to eating is compared to a hog. The camel is a kind of animal that takes pleasure in eating thorns. A person who wants to enjoy family life or the worldly life of so-called enjoyment is compared to the camel. Materialistic life is full of thorns, and one should live only by the prescribed method of Vedic regulations just to make the best use of a bad bargain. Life in the material world is maintained by sucking one's own blood. The central point of attraction for material enjoyment is sex life. To enjoy sex life is to suck one's own blood, and there is not much more to be explained in this connection. The camel also sucks its own blood while chewing thorny twigs. The thorns the camel eats cut the tongue of the camel, and so blood begins to flow within the camel's mouth. The thorns mixed with fresh blood create a taste for the foolish camel, and so he enjoys the thorn-eating business with false pleasure. Similarly, the great business magnates, industrialists who work hard to earn money by different ways and questionable means, eat the thorny results of their actions mixed with their own blood. Therefore, the Bhagavatam has situated these diseased fellows along with the camels. The ass is an animal who is celebrated as the greatest fool, even amongst the animals. The ass works very hard and carries the burden of the maximum weight without making profit for itself. And I'll read the footnote now. Footnote. Human life is meant for earning values. The life is called artadam, or that which can deliver values. And what is the greatest value of life? It is to return home back to Godhead, as indicated in Bhagavad Gita 8:15. One's selfishness must be aimed at the point of going back to Godhead. The ass does not know his self-interest, and it works very hard for others only. A person who works very hard for others only, forgetting his personal interest available in human form of life, is compared to an ass. In the Brahma Vaivata Purana, it is said, Ashtim Chaturashchaiva Laksham Tan Jiva Jatusu Brahmadbhi Purushai Prapyam Manushyam Janma Prayayat Tad Apya Balatham Jata Tesham Atma Bhimaninam Varakanam Anashritya Govinda Charanam Dvayam. The human life is so important that even the demigods and the higher planets sometimes aspire for a human body on this earth because in the human body only can one easily go back to Godhead. In spite of having obtained such an important body, if one does not reestablish his lost eternal relation with Govinda, Lord Krishna, he is certainly a fool who has forgotten his self-interest. The human form of material body is obtained by a gradual process of evolution to one body after another in the cycle of 8,400,000 varieties of life. And the poor man, forgetting this importance of his own interests, involves himself in so many illusory engagements for uplifting the position of others as a leader of political emancipation and economic development. There is no harm in trying for political emancipation or economic development, but one should not forget the real aim of life. All such philanthropic activities must be dovetailed to returning to Godhead. One who does not know this is compared to an ass who works only for others, without their own welfare in mind. End of the footnote. The ass is generally engaged by the washerman, whose social position is not very respectable. And the special qualification of the ass is that it is very much accustomed to being kicked by the opposite sex. When the ass begs for sexual intercourse, he is kicked by the fair sex, yet still he follows the female for sexual pleasure. A henpecked man is compared, therefore, to the ass. The general mass of people work very hard, especially in the age of Kali. In this age, the human being is actually engaged in the work of an ass, carrying heavy burdens and driving tela and rickshaws. The so-called advancement of human civilization has engaged a human being in the work of an ass. The laborers in great factories and workshops are also engaged in such burdensome work, and after working hard during the day, the poor laborer has to be again kicked by the fair sex, not only for sex enjoyment, but also for so many household affairs. So, Srimad Bhagavatam's categorization of the common man without any spiritual enlightenment into the society of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses is not at all an exaggeration. The leaders of such ignorant masses of people may feel very proud of being adored by such a number of dogs and hogs, but that is not very flattering. The Bhagavatam openly declares that although a person may be a great leader of such dogs and hogs disguised as men, if he has no taste for being enlightened in the science of Krishna, such a leader is also an animal, nothing more. He may be designated as a powerful, strong animal or a big animal, but in the estimation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is never given a place in the category of man on account of his atheistic temperament. Or in other words, such godless leaders of dogs and hog-like men are bigger animals with the qualities of animals in greater proportion. Om Gyana Timanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshorum Nanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shrayam Rupakadamayam Dadate Swabanantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuktapatakalam Shri Guru Vaishnamam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagaran Vaganaptam Mitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saditam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Rana Krishna Padan Sagana Lalitam Shri Vishakam Mitam Shah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimante Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimante Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunivari Paskatari Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, so before I begin on the verse, I'll just say a couple things about Ishwara Puri. So Ishwara Puri is the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya, and the main thing I just wanted to focus on is this. Well, there's two things, just significant things, but one thing is that so Ishwara Puri is the disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So Madhavendra Puri is being described as, I forget exactly what, but he's like the one that kind of like first showed the symptoms of like the ecstatic love that Lord Chaitanya specifically came down to display like that. Radha Bhava Duti Savalitam Nomni Krishna Sarupam. So Lord Chaitanya came down in that mood, and Madhavendra Puri began to exhibit those ecstatic symptoms. So Madhavendra Puri, so one significant thing I was thinking, so Ishwara Puri, there was Ishwara Puri and Ramachandra Puri. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think at the Antilila describes this, that the, so Madhavendra Puri was leaving this world, exhibiting the pastime of leaving. So he was very much lamenting, and he was crying and like this way. And so Ramachandra Puri, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, also, he was confused by that because this person was crying, and he was thinking that, well, now that one's dying, you should be like focusing on Brahman. So then he quoted some nice sloka to him. This was a Brahma Bhuta Prashanatmana Sochatina Kanchati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Lambate Param. So that verse explains that one should be situated, without hankering, without lamenting, because Madhavendra Puri seemingly was lamenting. He was crying. He didn't attain Mathura, he didn't attain Vrindavan, he didn't see Krishna. So he's lamenting. But now is not the time to lament, because you have to focus on Brahman. So his disciple instructed him in that way. And so Madhavendra Puri naturally was angry with that, because it's just like if someone is, reads their Vyas Puja offering to the spiritual master, or, like it reveals that they really, love this pastime of Krishna or something, and then someone tells them, like, why, like, you glorifying this person so much, like, like you shouldn't focus, whatever. They give some stupid spiritual instruction. So Ramachandra Puri gave a stupid spiritual instruction to his spiritual master because he was confused, and he didn't actually, one understanding interest, anyways, so much can be said about that, but it's interesting because Madhavendra Puri was his spiritual master, and he must have talked often and instructed him, and these things must have been talked about. But for some reason or other, Ramachandra Puri had some type of, he was confused or whatever. He didn't really enter into the same mood as Madhavendra Puri. So anyways, he was confused, and he gave him an instruction, and so Madhavendra Puri immediately told him to leave. But the inverse is that we have the true disciple, which is Ishwara Puri, who was doing menial service, and he was able to understand the mood of his spiritual master and served him. So Ishwara Puri, in that sense, is a great disciple. And so Ishwara Puri instructed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the same vein of the glories of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically states, he states many things, that his spiritual master called him a fool, and don't try to understand Vedanta, you can't just chant Hare Krishna. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood Vedanta, but the point is that, and he did study and explain these things, but he was signifying the importance of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and just leading the way to others to follow also, and also to stress that instruction. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains, and he's just going to read just one or two verses here, but he kind of explaining all that because the sannyasis at Banaras, specifically headed by Prakashananda Saraswati, they were confused and concerned about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities of chanting and dancing in the streets, because that wasn't seen as a high-class thing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains to him that his spiritual master instructed him to chant, and also then he goes on to say this. So, saying this, my spiritual master taught me a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is an essence of all the Bhagavatam's instructions. Therefore, he recited this verse again and again. So this verse is, Evam Vata Swapriya Nama Kritya Jatanu Rago Duta Chitta Uchai Ha Santyato Rodita Rauti Gati Unmada Van Nidyati Loka Bhayaha. So there's different translations. This is the translation from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated, and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. So this is a very important verse, and because it was specifically told as an instruction to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us also, and it was given, Ishwara Puri specifically instructed him on this point. So I just say a couple things there, so now I'll move on to the purport of the class. So let's write real quick. So okay. So the translation again. Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, deliverer from evils. So this can be seen as a heavy statement, heavy purport, a lot of heavy things about this. And it is heavy in two senses. One sense it's not heavy because it's a fact, it's reality. And one who is actually aspiring to come to the platform of Krishna consciousness, or at least come off the sensual platform, understands that such to live like these animals is not a good bargain. But one who is attached to the material world, who places a high value on engaging in sex life and acquiring material things, won't like such things. And so this isn't meant to also to be a verse of just what is this? Just some nice talking, some empathetic speaking, that they understanding that the people of Kali Yuga are disturbed in their minds and they're fallen, this and that. So we have to understand their position and speak nicely to them, and in such a way. So this isn't very empathetic on the part of the sages. But a sadhu isn't actually meant to be empathetic. It's described in the 11th canto, I think text 11, 26, 26, that the sadhu, can someone bring that verse up? 11, 26, 26. Just read the exact translation. This is from, I believe, the Aila Gita, the end of it, when Puruvra is lamenting his position and being attached to Urvasi and running around like that. Yeah, okay. So an intelligent person should therefore reject all bad association and instead take up the association of saintly devotees, whose words cut off the excessive attachment of one's mind. So that's the actual duty of the sadhu, is to cut one's attachments of the material world, specifically the attachments, whatever, in the mind, because one is thinking, well, enjoy in this way, or do that, do this. So the actual duty of the sadhus is that they speak very sharply in order to knock those attachment off. Because you could tell someone, oh, like, you have so much more value in your life, why are you, you're such a great personality, you're so intelligent, you're so amazing, why are you subjecting yourself to take service from other people? You can start your own business. But instead, you freaking dog, you're going and begging from one place to another. What's the matter with you? Don't you find any other higher values in life? So generally in Kali Yuga, that people will get offended by that, and it'll make an impression on their mind. Because sometimes it may be needed depending on the individual, but it's also important to understand that there's a time to speak gently, but there's also a time to speak intensely. So Srila Prabhupada applied that very much, and also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur applied that also. So I remember one time, some years ago, I was distributing books in California, in Berkeley. So I met one man on the street, and he was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and anyways, he said some different things. But one thing he specifically said was that, and I remember this, quoting this verse, he in another sense, but he was saying that, he wanted to impress upon me that, Srila Prabhupada says that, there's people in this world, they're like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. But that's not true, actually, because there are very nice people in the material world who are not Krishna conscious and not devotees, and they're also very, very nice, and we should have their association. But the thing is that that's not actually true, because in the ultimate sense, actually, the association of materialistic persons, so they may be very nice, they may be very kind, they may be very cultured or whatever, that their association actually further entangles us in the material world and causes us to take birth after birth again. That's why Rishabhadev in this, in the Canto 5, Chapter 5, I believe text 18, he says, I don't know the Sanskrit, but he expresses that one shouldn't be a guru of, for all these different, one shouldn't be a father, shouldn't be a mother, shouldn't be all these different things, take any position of authority unless that individual can deliver one from the cycle of birth and death. So the point of that is that because if one takes a responsible position or some authoritative stance, one will not actually be able to give the full purport or the full understanding of what the human life is actually meant for. One will simply give instructions like we're seeing here. Go to school, get your education. So go to school, get your education. If you like something, eat it. Engage in much sex life as possible, and work hard and party harder. But the thing is that people work hard and they don't party harder because they work so hard on the weekend that they're all dried up and spent by the time Friday night and Saturday comes. Or they work hard Friday and Saturday night. Or they're working so hard because they work the graveyard shift, and then they just sleep all during the day. So this is the instructions that are given specifically in the age of Kali Yuga, because there is a dearth of spiritual knowledge. What's this verse? Natevidu Swartakatimi Vishnu. So people don't realize that the actual worth and the goal of life is to worship Vishnu. So therefore, the Bhagavatam refers to them as dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. I was thinking one time also, but Guru Maharaj mentions, and I don't know if he mentions or Janananda Maharaj mentions, but talking about the preaching in Malaysia. So anyway, so there's some nice pastime with Janananda Maharaj. So anyway, so there was some argument in the class, and Mitravana probably likes this one. But so some person was arguing in the class. I forget the exact context. He was arguing with the devote. Janananda Maharaj was giving class, and he was like arguing with them, and he wasn't accepting the text. So Janananda Maharaj asked the man in the audience. It was, I forget exactly what, but he asked him, do you eat meat? And the guy was like, what does this have to do with it? Yeah, I eat meat. He's like, so you eat meat, huh? And then Janana Maharaj expressed that, well, you're just like a hog. A hog, you eat anything and everything, and you don't care about nothing. So this is strong preaching and heavy preaching, and that man probably got fried out. But the one thing is that individual will never forget that. That's one amazing thing that I've actually seen with the devotees, is that in the material world, people are so interested in being so nice, but the devotees, they can speak strongly in order to awaken people. And it's coming from the platform of care and concern, actually, of helping people understand the situation of their material life. So this particular verse is mentioning, so the aspect of it is, as long as one doesn't take to Krishna consciousness, he's living like an animal. So this, I wanted to read one verse in particular. So this is from the 11th canto, 5th chapter, text 17. So this is Eta Atma Hano Santa Ajnane Jana Manina Siddhant Yakrita Krityavai Kala Dvashta Manorataha. So this Manorataha, that also is in another verse, famous verse in the Bhagavatam. So the translation is, the killers of the soul are never peaceful because they consider that human intelligence is ultimately meant for expanding material life. Thus, neglecting their real duty, spiritual duties, they are always in distress. They are filled with great hopes and dreams, but unfortunately, these are always destroyed by the inevitable march of time. So this is the point here, that the people in human society are killing their soul because they're wasting their human intelligence. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned this in the purport in the text. So it's the duty of those who are actual followers of Srila Prabhupada and those who are actually making the Srimad Bhagavatam is their actual life, to propound this knowledge and take people from the platform of animals to the platform of human beings. So now going through this purport, Srila Prabhupada opens up the purport by giving the understanding of dogs. So in society nowadays, to call someone a dog previously, I mean, it's kind of like a mixed thing, because it's actually as slang as to call someone your dog is that's like some deep connection. But the actual reality of it is that to be a dog is not a compliment in and of itself. The dog, as Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport, is the essence of the dog is that the dog needs a master. So to be a dog of a materialist isn't very good, but to be a dog of a Vaishnava is very good. We should be a dog of the devotees. But particularly in the mood in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is highlighting the doggish mentality. And so most people probably won't like to hear this, but in modern university, it's as Prabhupada explained, it's a doggish mentality. Because what are people going to the university for? Generally people don't go to the university to learn something or to better their lives. People go to the university to get some education in order to get some job or some position in society. That's the whole point. Growing up, whatever, is told, go to school, get your education, go to university so you can get a good job. And whatever, and then continue enjoying a material life. But this is the situation. So people, they go to the university and then they learn whatever. You major in science or I don't know. So many useless degrees people are getting. Just like one person was telling me recently, they get a degree. So many of it. People get a degree and then they don't get a job and whatever they're working for. Just like one of my friends growing up. I mean, he's probably still in school now. He's been in school since 2011 in college. And so he's studying this, studying that. And for what? So he can become a teacher and teach English. So he's going to school for like 10 years and spending thousands and thousands of dollars to become an English teacher. So is it really needed that much education to teach English? Probably not. So the thing is that previously people, it was actually wasn't such a high thing to have to take service of other people. Specifically in India that is there, but then people, like if you go down the street, someone will be cooking something or making something or selling something. They're self-employed or whatever. They'll go around in the streets in the morning, where they're selling this, selling that, and, they'll have a little cart or something simple. So that independence was seen as something good. But in the West, it's like very prestigious. People, they fill out a resume or something, and then they put, I worked at this company for so many years, I did this, I did that, and then the whole resume thing, I went to school, and, in my school, in this class, I took a leadership position, and I'm very serious about my work, I'm very serious about my studies, so therefore, I would be a very nice, classy dog to be in your company. So this is the situation, actually. And this is the mentality, and it's unfortunate, actually, that people are trained up and brought in such a way. And the thing, too, is, people, they go through this university, and they work so hard, and then they acquire so much debt. And then they come out, and then they're in anxiety, wondering, I went to this school to learn this trade or this art. And they went to art school, and now they have $80,000 in debt. So what job are you going to get as an artist, and making to pay off that $80,000 a year, whatever, in so many years? Probably not a good job. You become an art teacher, whatever. That's usually a joke, and amongst some people I've heard that if you can't get a job in your certain field, then teach it. So then you have math teachers, history teachers, economic teachers, music teachers, so many teachers that weren't successful in their field, so they just teach it. And then they're miserable because they don't want to teach it, and they need money. And then the whole thing just becomes a mess. And then the doggish mentality continues. So this is the degrading situation. And so this is unfortunate, actually. So this is the doggish mentality. And it's unfortunate. All these things are actually unfortunate. Then Prabhupada continues. So going on. So the hoggish people. The hog is epitomized by eating anything and everything. Which, I wonder when Srila Prabhupada was writing this at the time, if he actually understood the extent that people would go to eat things. Because generally we understand that people, you have to preach to people, don't eat, animals or whatever. And people eat all kinds of animals. People eat anything. It's an aspect of tourism to just go to different places and eat things. And so people will eat, nasty things. People will eat crickets. When I was young, unfortunately, people were eating the brains of monkeys. People trying that, and they think it's fun, and this and that. And then people eat dogs, people eat cows, people eat so many disgusting things. But what to speak of just eating animals? It was described during Srila Prabhupada's time that Andy Warhol ate the fetus of a human fetus. Disgusting. And people too. It's so many nasty things people think. People also, as a joke, Guru Maharaj mentions in one talk that Frank Zappa, somebody passed stool on the stage, and he ate that, somebody's stool. But then it's also too, then I remember reading also growing up in these different books. It was about some rock and roll artist, but citing his degraded past to describe some other band that he looked up to. So on one of the sets of this band, they begin to throw up and pass stool on the stage and then eat it off the stage of the concert. So this is the show, and this is disgusting. But this is the reality of the situation, that people are literally like hogs, and they'll eat anything, and they'll do that. And just, and people will eat dog food, people will eat anything, and they'll film themselves eating it also. And then they get some kick off that also, some pride that I'm on film eating stool or eating dog food or whatever it is, or like that. And then also too, then they eat people. It's crazy. We're preaching, come, so don't eat meat, don't eat that. But then there'll probably come a day when we have to preach to people, don't eat stool. Just like one man was coming to the temple at one point, and we had to speak to him and try to explain that you shouldn't drink your own urine. And it was a big thing, and he was drinking for months and months, living in the temple, to the point where he finally gave up because he dropped his glass bottle, because you have to drink out of a glass bottle because that's the healthy way to do it, and it had his urine all in it, and it got all on the temple floor. So the thing is that, Prabhupada is saying these things, but people are actually living like that. And then we have to figure out how to explain to them not to do these things. Because then we can think and we could talk high things, just like this verse in particular. Some people may not like to speak on it because, you could just kind of pass over all these things and just focus on Gadagraj and Krishna, he's wielding that. And then there's verses in the 10th canto, there's a verse where this name is mentioned, so you can jump to that, I think, with Banasura. And we can discuss the whole Banasura Leela and this and that. But then what's the point, actually, if people are drinking their urine, eating stool, and, like this? Anyways, so these things need to be discussed. And they help because reality of the situation is Krishna's up here. Most people are down here. So we have to gradually bring people up to understand Krishna, because there's no point in talking big things about Krishna if people are eating their own stool or eating the stool of others. And so we never know, because sometimes we speak and we say that, oh, society is getting so bad and people are getting crazy and this and that, but we may have to preach, don't eat your own stool, don't drink your urine. It's surprising, but it's true, it may happen, and it's unfortunate, but things are getting worse and worse and worse. So this is the situation. So the alternative is that you eat prasadam, you eat nice food cooked to Krishna. But then the thing is that people, they're so sinful, unfortunately, that they don't like prasadam, or they just they spit it out, or they throw it in the trash or whatever. So there's in Krishna consciousness, there's nice food. So you give up all this nasty food. And anyways, this meat, there's only a couple ways to serve it. You can cook some potato and you can cook it in this way, you can cook it in that way. There's so many different varieties in which one can actually prepare foodstuff, vegetarian foodstuff, and offer it to Krishna. There's so much variety in that. The same simple ingredients Prabhupada explains, it can transform it in unlimited ways and cook so many different things. One just has to be a little enthusiastic in that regard. So, who will not be attracted to prasadam? Who unfortunate people? So, this is the situation. So Prabhupada's explaining this. So this is what the hog does. And so the hog enjoys eating these nasty things, and people enjoy eating these nasty things. So people, they have to be educated. Human life means to come up and not just to eat anything and everything. Whatever. And people also, too, they'll also eat disgusting things in the name of intoxication. Was this alcohol? It's disgusting and tastes nasty, but people, they drink it because it gets you messed up and makes whatever, and there's so many things, and people eat and take. So this is hog life. So human life, control the senses. Don't eat anything and everything. Don't do anything and everything. Have a little self-control and administer discipline. Understand that the purpose of life is Krishna consciousness. So continuing in the same vein, Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain the camel. So the camel is, I always found this one very interesting, because the very point of it is, it's amazing imagery, but it's reality, that the camel is eating thorns, and the taste of the camel's tasting its blood, and I don't know, I've never eaten thorns, but thorns, I can imagine them tasting that good. But blood does have some taste, unfortunately. Anyways, you cut your mouth. I cut my mouth a couple of times really bad, and then there's been a lot of blood in that sense. So blood has some nasty taste. But the camel, anyways, whatever, it has a particular body. I forget this verse in the 15th canto, but it's described. What is this? What's this? The punya. I can't remember it, but it's described a living entity attains a particular body according to the sense organs. I can't remember the first verse or first line. Punyod putra vigitam. Yeah. Evam chasmi vibhavaso. Yeah.
No, but that's opulence.
No. That's not the verse I'm talking about. No. Maybe that. Yeah. Shrotum Chakshuspashanam Cha Rasanam Granam Eva Cha Adishaya Manashayam Vishanu Vasevate. So living entity, yeah, both those verses particular. So both of those verses describe so that the living entity gets a particular body. He gets the proper mind, the proper sense organs, this and that, so he can enjoy those sense organs. So anyways, the camel has a particular body in which he can enjoy the taste of his own blood. What an existence. So anyway, so we think, oh, the camel, what a foolish animal. He's drinking his blood, like that. We can sit and we can speak. But then the reality of the situation is that's what people are doing, actually. And Prabhupada explains here that that to enjoy sex life is to suck one's own blood. And there's not much more to be explained in this connection. So I was thinking about this also, that so people in the name of enjoying sex life and what sexual revolution and freedom and this and that and whatever, they're pretty much killing themselves, actually, in so many different ways. But they don't realize it. Actually, in the school, when you grow up, in like middle school or something, you get sexual education, which focuses more or less around the fact of how to avoid getting STDs and how to avoid getting pregnant. But in the sexual education, it would probably be intelligent for them to explain that when you engage in sex life, just don't forget that you're doing it at the expense of your life and expanding your blood every single time, actually. But they don't express these things or tell these things at all. So it's unfortunate also that people that they're engaging so much in this sex life. And then also too, it's getting to the point where, just the whole dynamics of sex is changing so much due to the so-called technological advancement of society. People are just becoming like animals more and more. In previous times, people, they would, enjoy this way and that way, but just people are, sex addicts, and they just, they just constantly just... some sexual activity is going on every hour. They're completely absorbed in that. So in the next life, they'll become monkeys. So it's people they don't know. So they think they're enjoying. That's the problem. They think that by engaging in this activity that it's bringing them happiness, that they're satisfied. But they don't realize that so-called satisfaction they get is at the expense of their own blood. And so, like this. So people are expanding, they're just ruining their lives, working so hard, for whatever situation, for money, to maintain this and that, the family members. But they're working hard and they're acquiring all this money at the expense of their blood, and they have no idea who Krishna is. They've never even heard of Krishna. And then maybe God, but whatever. So this is the situation, actually. So continuing, the ass. So Srila Prabhupada explains in so many different ways. So Prabhupada has explained all these things, and he would quote these regularly in his purports and in his conversations. He would always refer to people who don't take up to Krishna consciousness as hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. So the ass is working extremely hard, and I've seen it a couple of times in India, but then the ass will have so much, things carried on the back and getting whipped and working that hard for just a little bit of food. But Prabhupada will explain that he's working so hard with his little bit of food, but then he doesn't realize this path that he's walking, there's grass on the left, grass on the right. So he's working hard in that degree, and for what reason? And then there's also some nice imagery in that, is that the ass gets repetitively kicked by the opposite sex in some intermedium in the sexual intercourse. So that also too, people are working very hard for sex life, and then they get in relationships, and then they just get tormented like anything. And this happens to both men and to women, in different ways that it happens. But then they work so hard for somebody, and then this person just manipulates them and tortures them, and then in a horrible relationship, and then, why don't you just leave that person? But then, I can't leave. They love me so much. And then they're trapped in this way. It's so unfortunate The people are just locked into that. And there's different ways of looking at it. That can be that person's karma. But I mean, actually, if someone's karma is to suffer, we don't want them to suffer because of their karma. We want them to get free from that. We want them to take to the process of Krishna consciousness and take this knowledge and get out of that horrible situation. But people in that way are suffering. And then there's so many instances of that. And then people are getting abused and hit, but then they keep staying with it or whatever. And it happens with both parties. Sometimes men beat the women, and sometimes women beat the men, actually. Both those things are going on. So, but then they're working so hard to maintain that, and then they think, oh, what? Anyways, about getting all into that. But this person will change, but then the person doesn't change or whatever. So people are living like that, and then we may not know, they may not say so many things. People are living quiet lives of desperation, suffering very quietly. We don't hear, we don't see. Just like there's so many earthworms probably underneath the soil who are living their lives and things like that. But we don't see, we don't really consider so much. We walk and we go about our lives. So many people are silently suffering in this material world, looking for Krishna, begging for Krishna. So we have to give them Krishna. So working hard in that sense, so much hard work. And Srila Prabhupada sums up this purport. The conclusion, well, one of the conclusions is that, that all these people are like that. They're unfortunate, and they're completely into ignorance. And so what is the value of these people to glorify another man, and then just put this man on the pedestal that he's so great, he's so amazing, he's so wonderful. But they actually have no character in and of themselves. Just like we may go, it's a simple understanding, but we may go to the state prison or whatever, maybe not the Alcatraz, the top-notch high security prison. So those are filled with the worst of the worst members of human society. So if we go amongst that rung of people and then we ask them, well, who is the best person in this jail? And they all say, well, this person is the best person in the jail. We all can agree on it, that he's the best, he's number one. We all will sit here and sing his glories. Will we take their opinion very seriously? They're all criminals. I mean, they're in there because they're doing the worst of crimes. So we won't really think that person's the best of the best, that he's an amazing, the top-notch criminal. We may accept that, well, he's probably the worst of them all, but we won't take their opinion very seriously because they don't have any moral character. They're in that situation because they made very wrong decisions. So similarly, if so much emphasis is given to the current status quo of what people think and how they feel, without taking into consideration their spiritual qualities and their understanding of Bhagavan, of Krishna, of the Vedas, or at least of spiritual knowledge, there isn't so much value to their opinion. And there also, too, that individual that's being boasted up so much, he's also a big animal, as Srila Prabhupada says here. He may be designated a powerful, strong animal or a big animal, but in the estimation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is never given a place in the category of man on the account of his atheistic temperament. So he's not considered a man, actually. He's not considered a human being. So those people who, though they may not be very big, or they may be simple, and living in some rural village or something, if they worship Krishna sincerely and they make progress on that path, they're considered to be an actual human being. And we take their opinion very seriously. And we admire such sadhus and such saintly people. So that is the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the way, what is this? The Shastra Chakshus. This is the eye of Shastra that we have to see through, and the understanding that we have to have. Because otherwise we'll get caught up into that, and there'll be godless leaders of dogs and hog-like men are bigger animals with the qualities of animals in greater proportion. We'll get caught up and we'll think that's a very amazing and very great person because, everybody says he's so amazing, he's so intelligent, and you see on the New York Times list he has a #1 selling book, so therefore he's a great author. But what is this? Sridhar Swami has explained, I believe, that this this literature is just this. First of all, this literature is for those that are prostitute hunters, and then whatever the biggest prostitute hunter who has the brains to write all this down on paper is, glorified very much. So we're not interested in such things. We're interested in delivering this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and in bringing people up in the platform of Krishna consciousness, so that they can relish who Krishna is, and relish the Bhagavatam, and then the Purana. All these amazing things are here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So many nice, wonderful things. Okay, so. And it's a lot better too. Just like this, and people read all it just gets boring. You read one book, 2 books, 3 books, the same book, whatever. But there's no taste in that. But there is taste in the pastimes of Krishna and of Krishna consciousness. Not only is there taste, but there's purification. And if they're explained by the proper devotee, they have to be explained in the authorized system. But there's great happiness to be understood in that. But it starts from where we're at and where the population is at. So these things have to be explained also. So I'll end this by reading a little bit from Preaching Strongly in Srila Prabhupada's service. So this chapter here is called Fight with Shastra. So I'll read that and then we'll open up for some questions. So Shastric teachings should be conveyed without change, yet also with consideration of eligibility of the target audience. Shastric lore covers the whole spectrum of spiritual knowledge up to the highest level of Radha Krishna Prem. But people in general who are enculturated to think of this world as nice first need to hear that it is not at all nice, that they do not belong here, and that they should make endeavor to get out. Srila Prabhupada never tired of making these points, and he repeatedly quoted some of the most devastating Shastric verses that demonstrate them. As Tamal Krishna Goswami recalled, no matter how important the person was, Prabhupada spoke about dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. And then quoting this verse. So I'll just read I have to read the Sanskrit actually for these. So Swadvid Rahastro Karai Samshruta Purusha Pashahu Nayat Karna Pato Peto Jatu Nama Gadagrajaha. Then, so the translation again. Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, to deliver from evils. Some more are Prabhupada's favorites from Rishabhdev's teachings. Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbujamye tapo divyam puchakayena sattvam sudyed yasmad brahmasokyam tonanam tam. Of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, who have been awarded this human form of life, should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. Continuing, Numna pramata kurite vikarma yet indriya pritaya aprinoti nasadu manye yata atmanoyam ashan apiklesha asadeha. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. Pumsa striya mituni bhava metam taro mitor hidaya gritim ahu atogriha kshetra sutapta viter janasya moho yam ahammameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusion and thinks in terms of I, me, and mine. So continuing with that. There are many similar verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essential subject of the Vedas, Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu. The highest truth, reality, Vastavam, distinguished from illusion for the welfare, Shivadam, of all, which uproots the threefold miseries, Tapatrayamulanam, and at the onset rejects cheating religiosity, Dharma Projita Kaitava. Although such pronouncements are not what most people generally expect or like to hear, they are the truth that Srila Prabhupada preached and told his disciples to preach. This is a quote from Prabhupada. To preach Bhagavata religion, sometimes we have to quote from the Shastras what is not palatable to unscrupulous so-called religious persons. But in preaching, we cannot do without quoting the proper verses. Sometimes they take it adversely, and we become subject to unwanted criticism. We are presenting Krishna philosophy and teaching it as it is. And what can we do more? But this process of presentation has become fortunate, and we have become successful. I do not wish to change the process. I hope you will appreciate this process of preaching the facts as they are confirmed by all Vaishnav Acharyas. That is a letter on the 16th of May, 1974. Continuing. Representatives of the parampara are duty-bound to present the words of Krishna. If we are really Krishna conscious, then our business is to repeat the words of Krishna. That's all. What is the difference between Krishna's representative and non-representative? The representative of Krishna will simply repeat what Krishna says. That's all. He becomes representative. It doesn't require much qualification. You simply repeat with firm conviction. End quote. One who assumes the position of a devotee of Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, but nevertheless fails to properly represent Krishna by unmitigatedly speaking the truth of the Gita, indulges in deceit and hypocrisy, and steps outside the parampara. And then there's a footnote there, that preaching to the many people who do not accept Shastra as discussed, and scientific but not dogmatic. So that is our duty as being initiated in this parampara, is to speak the message of Krishna, speak the message of Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, whether people like it or don't like it. So Hare Krishna. Is there any questions or comments about anything?
Hare Krishna. So, this verse always makes me feel quite nostalgic, in the sense that when I was coming around to Krishna consciousness, around 2010, I was looking for a job. I did work for a year, but these lines of Srila Prabhupada, where he speaks about after finishing a so-called education, the so-called educated persons move like dogs from door to door, applications for some service, and mostly they're driven away informed of no vacancy. It really, really hit me hard. Because, in India you have street dogs.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you feel like it, you'll feed a street dog. Other times, just shoo it away. The street dog has no capacity ever to know the mind of the person it is approaching. Sometimes it will get fed, sometimes it will be shooed away. And that example was so graphic, and I felt like, here I am, I'm a dog. And I remember looking. They'll teach you as you graduate from university, they'll teach you how you're supposed to get a job. And, some of the seminars are saying you have to look at yourself. See, just like someone who has to sell a commodity has to believe in the commodity, you yourself are the commodity and you have to believe in yourself to sell yourself. And while it's supposed to sound inspirational, I found it pretty depressing. I'm like, I'm a commodity, I have to sell myself to become a slave of somebody else. Like, where is the self-esteem there once you sell yourself? Basically, what's the difference between you and a prostitute? And apart from that, when you go into work, the way the job actually looks at you, they don't look at you as a person. you're not called by your name. You're not referred to by your name. You have some number, some employee ID attached to you. And that's how you run on the sheets of the human resource, the HR, department. They have their sheets, and how do they quantify your work. And then when they suffer a little bit of losses, they just highlight several of those sections, several of the rows of employees who are all like not underperforming or whatever, and just hit the delete button and they're fired.
Yeah.
And you're just some kind of economic commodity. Nothing. You don't have a personality to yourself. You're just some product, meant to fill the pockets of the corporations, CEOs or whatever, their directors. And it was, and all that was quite graphic when I was working, and it gave me a lot of inspiration to quit my job and to never consider that kind of a life. So I think
You can relate to, I don't want to get in details, but I know at one point before, like I met devotees, I was like trying to get a job, and like, just like the typical like low class places, but there was a place I was trying to get, it was like a really like low class job. It was just like, like top of the bottom, just like dirty work, and I couldn't even get the job there. And then I was like begging like a dog and like trying to do all these things, but I was like, at one point I was feeling like, dang, like I can't even get a job at this place. Like it's just like practically like all I had to do was like clean up stool, and I was like, couldn't even get a job doing that. And I was like, what am I gonna do? Anyways, Krishna's mercy. But it was like, anyways, if I would have got that job, that would have been wild. But I didn't even qualify for that. I was thinking, what the heck? When they didn't give me the job, I was like, what the heck? I was like, why am not? Anyways, but it's funny now. It wasn't funny then. It was. Anyways, I've had my low points. I've gone a lot lower than that, but anyways, that's a chapter in my life I don't want to talk about. Well, but maybe not a chapter, maybe a whole section. Everything before Krishna consciousness. You think you had something wrong?
Yes. He was talking about service. Hare Krishna. You're talking about service. One thing I want to understand is that lately I've been getting, like, a devotee's been helping me. And then, like, about a week or so ago, they told me something that caused me, like, a disturbance. And I was like, I couldn't understand, like, they know my guru, and they told me how amazing my guru was. And then they tell me that the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to serve your guru. And it's interesting because it's like, I was like, I just got initiated. I'm supposed to be serving my guru. I'm taking service from my guru, for my guru. I was like, and then I felt like really out of place at that point. So how do I better understand when it comes to like, I shouldn't be taking service from my guru, or one who wants to serve my guru through me. How can I better understand that?
I don't really 100% understand your question, but
so what happened was
the first step.
Someone wants to serve my guru.
Okay, someone was
And
guru.
they were helping me before, but they didn't tell me anything. But now, like a week ago, they're like, "Oh, I'm doing this because I want to serve your guru."
Yeah, what's the problem with that? Everybody is, all the whatever, anybody who's helping, the whole is, there's no problem with that. They're trying to help you become a devotee, or in general, or whatever, fix something. I don't know the exact situation, but
Yeah.
they want the devotees want us to become better devotees. The spiritual master wants us to become a pure devotee of Krishna. So if they help the spiritual master in that service, there's no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was just curious because I didn't feel right. I wasn't sure how to feel about it because it just seems like I was
Yeah.
accepting service from my guru
Yeah.
when I'm supposed to be serving him.
We serve the guru, but ultimately, we're hearing from him and we're serving him, but he's running so much service to us because he's taking all this time to speak, to write books, to preach to us, all these things. The guru's doing unlimited amounts of service to us. What are we doing? Whatever. We think we do big service because we cook a couple meals for him and wash his clothes or something. But he's engaging us in service, actually. So without the connection to the spiritual master, there's no question of service. So our whole connection to Krishna is through the spiritual master, and the guru is engaging us in service. So, there's no problem. They're helping.
Thank you. One other thing was when I came to the United States, you talk about this dog thing. When I went to school, this guy, the first time he saw me, he was like, "This is my dog." I remember coming.
Prahlad Maharaj. Any questions or comments on what did you say?
In regards to Ram Das, Ram Das, previous question, like we're just so eager to allow anybody to engage in service, right? Because we know it's not just for us, it's going up eventually to Krishna. Even like if somebody gives us directions and, or goes out of their way to help us, like we see it, oh, they're engaging in Agyata Sukriti and it's for their benefit. So we should, not be shy about engaging others. But anyway, very nice class, thank you. And dogs can be trained too, but it takes something. But I once saw this documentary about animals and about the she-ass kicking the donkey in the face. It was about this insect, and it was like in the rainforest, very, very tall tree, very tall. And at the top of the tree is a female bug, and she makes some kind of sound, and it attracts him, and he crawls, and they have music, dum, 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 dum. And the bug crawls way up to the top of the tree. When he gets to the top, she just kicks him down, and he goes all the way down to the ground, and then does it again and again. I guess eventually she surrenders. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's true. As we said about, like we don't notice it. So, like people kind of look happy sometimes, but you mentioned how there's so much unfortunate, how relationships are so very painful, and for both the men and the women, and they're tormented by this, and especially, not being trained in faithfulness and commitment. So there's always like a back door to get out of it, and all that. Yeah, thanks for the reminder.
I just had a comment when you were talking about Madhavendra Puri. It reminded me of this lecture that I was just listening to Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. It's like the most recent one, but the mention was made about Indra was inquiring from Lord Brahma as well as a representative of the Ashuras, inquiring what is the Atma, and so Brahma had given an instruction that was deliberately misleading, and only Lord Indra was able to continue inquiring, which was Brahma's intention. And so similarly in what we see with the pastime of Madhavendra Puri and the disciple who didn't understand him, it's kind of like the point that Maharaj was making with that lecture was how, the cheaters and the cheated, but basically, if we're not sincere in our questioning, so to speak, then we won't get a sincere response. And we can be a disciple, but if we don't hear from our spiritual master, it doesn't matter. So I'm sure Madhavendra Puri did instruct him, in these matters, but for the transcendental pastime, we were seeing that he didn't receive that, so that we can understand how to be a bona fide disciple.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki,
Hare Krishna.